So when I first saw Justin Gaethje in World Series of Fighting, my first read, way back in like 2015, 2016 when I was writing for Fightland, was this guy can't see anything. Because of the way he fights. If you watch when his opponent punches, he just doesn't see anything coming. And, there's another number of other things you can do to read whether a fighter has bad vision. But typically, it's over-reliance on reaching and feeling the opponent. So holding and hitting. And catch and pitch. So taking blows on the guard and then firing back once you feel that the opponent is close enough. So here's some holding and hitting. Here's some really obvious catch and pitch. Just double forearms up, head down every time the opponent throws. But when you feel them hit your guard, you swing back as hard as you can. And sometimes it works really well. Like that. And then Gaethje himself confirmed he got eye surgery years later, and he just got much slicker. You can see him actually slipping punches, looking at them, seeing where they're coming from. Still the same grabbing and hitting and stuff, which is what we're going to talk about today, but a very different fighter. Another great example of this would be someone like Joe Frazier. If you watch Joe Frazier, in his prime, but like towards the later end of his career, think like the Thriller in Manila with Muhammad Ali, their third fight. But even like the first fight with Ali, he had lost vision in one eye already as a child, and then he started growing a cataract over the other one. So by the time the doctors actually noticed this, after the third Ali fight, they reckon he had 20% vision in one eye. And you watch clips of him and it's like pressing up on people. His head movement it can't possibly be reacting to the opponent because his eyes are down. He's bending forward at the waist with the cross guard and he's just coming up in rhythm and trying to hit him. And then the one fight he had after having surgery for his cataract was the rematch with George Foreman. And you can see that he's actually looking at punches and he can see them and he's reacting. Sadly, he loses that fight because he's just George Foreman was a bad matchup for Frazier to begin with. But it did make you wonder, like, man, imagine if that guy had eyes his entire career. But the big part I want to talk about is his holding and hitting. Justin Gaethje has like the nicest collar tie uppercut in MMA right now. Collar tie uppercut got a great history, collar tie punching generally. Randy Couture obviously made it famous in MMA. It's called dirty boxing in MMA because it's illegal in boxing. That doesn't mean you won't see it though. You hold behind the head with one hand and you smash him in the face with the other. And the brilliant thing about it is that if the guy has slicker head movement than you, why not just stop letting him move his head? Just grab a hold of it and punch him. Dustin Poirier was getting completely outclassed by Joe Duffy on the feet, who was a much slicker boxer, and grabbed his head and slammed in 4 or 5 good uppercuts, and that was the change of the fight. So the Gaethje standard, this is from his first fight with Frazier, is to perform a slip. If the opponent jabs, that takes him to the elbow side of their jab. If he's jabbing, it makes sure that he gets down behind this shoulder as he's reaching for their head. And this is what you're going to see a ton of. This really low dip here, which can be exploited, but is also a pretty effective one-size-fits-all defense for basically any punching, unless the opponent's pretty smart. And from there, he's going to come up with the right uppercut under the chin. Last round of the Fiziev fight is just full of instances like this. Jabs, Fiziev slips, and all that Gaethje does to counter it is stick to his head. Pow. And the reason this works for both mitigating the head movement of a good boxer and making up for the fact you can't see shit is that all you have to do is punch towards your own hand, as long as you get your hand close enough to their head. So Gaethje does this with like his hand on their trap or shoulder a lot, and just throws the right hand across the top. And there are collar ties everywhere for those with eyes to see them. This is coming up out of the front headlock, picks up the single, reaches for the head and clubs him across the top. That right hook, while holding the head, is about as effective for Gaethje as the right uppercut. Every time he gets clinched and gives up an underhook, he leans down on this elbow, gets his hips back, and looks for the opportunity for this arm to come up, catch the head, and then he'll club them with the right hand as he breaks from the clinch. Like that. For some examples of the Collar tie uppercut in boxing. Sandy Sadler is your man. This is him knocking out Willie Pep in one of their 4 fights. One of the greatest boxers ever. So, you know, that's how you rate Sadler. And here's the boy Beterbiev. Mauling a guy against the ropes. Gets the collar tie. Gets the collar tie. Uppercut. And one of the interesting wrinkles of this is both Beterbiev and Sadler fight with their left foot forward. His left foot is forward now. He's holding with his right hand so that he can uppercut with his lead hand. Because his lead foot is directly underneath him, so he can drive up into that uppercut really effectively. Islam Makhachev does this a lot. Like he can like jump into it. Here's Sadler, orthodox fighter, left foot forward, left-handed, but this is going to allow him to drive up underneath on that uppercut because he's got the rear hand collar tie. Boom. And that's how he drops Pep later. Right hand collar tie, left foot forwards, left uppercut. Lovely. So the Fiziev fights were really interesting because Fiziev's a switch hitter. So Gaethje will do this deep slip to his right, over here, whenever Fiziev steps into punch from orthodox, because that takes him past Fiziev's lead shoulder. If he slipped deep this way, he would be into the path of Fiziev's right hand. Basically, anywhere his head goes over here. If he takes his head past Fiziev's lead shoulder, makes it hard for Fiziev to follow up with this right hand unless he's really carefully gauged the distance to come across with an uppercut, which we'll see Max Holloway do later. But because Fiziev's a switch hitter, Gaethje doesn't want to lean deep to his right when Fiziev is in a southpaw stance. So here. Because that can happen. Leaning right into, you can see he gets away by the skin of his teeth here. You can have that right forearm up as high as he wants, but if you lean into that and take the kick through the forearm on your head, probably still not going to be great. Another great example here, because Fiziev starts the exchange orthodox, steps back to southpaw, and Gaethje moves forward, sort of like ignoring the fact he's gone southpaw, and gets kneed in the head. Boom. So here's another angle of it. Orthodox versus orthodox, you get outside this lead shoulder. There's not a lot he can do with his... Well, there's quite a long way away there, so he might be able to scoop in the uppercut. But there's a lot in the way of him landing a good right-handed shot there, and he has to reach all the way across himself. If you dip down on this side, orthodox versus southpaw, open stance, his back leg has all this room to come through unobstructed by the backside of your body or any sort of guard. He's fighting basically just your rear forearm. So this is why we're always talking about kicking on the open side, because then you're only dealing with the opponent's forearm. You're not dealing with their back, which even if you kick it, it's going to be a bit more sturdy than the front side of their body. But moments later, Justin Gaethje shows something that I've never seen him show before, which was really crafty. He does this big slip outside. Fiziev's been trying to time him with the uppercut across the body and with the left knee. So this time he slips the other way. He went down to this side first and then weaves all the way under to get back to the position that he wanted to be in the first place. To catch the collar tie and hit the uppercut, and then he drops Fiziev. So instead of slipping to the outside, he slips to the inside and weaves under, claps him with the left hand and throws the right hand to his left hand to score the uppercut and knock Fiziev down. Crazy. So rather than outside slip, inside slip first, weave under, collar tie, uppercut. Bonkers. If you want to see someone do good weaving in MMA, probably KJ Noons is your best bet. And another great thing about the collar tie is that it's good for people who move their heads, or against people who move their heads. If they don't move their heads, they just cover up, you could still just grab the collar tie. Fabricio Verdum's entire heavyweight career was just throwing punches confidently enough that the guy covered up, and then grabbing his head and hitting him some more. So then a couple of times that this was not effective or exploited. Dustin Poirier, obviously full-time southpaw, a little bit difficult to apply against him. And then Max Holloway did a couple of things to directly counter it. So lining up the uppercut across his body. which, like I said, you've got to get the right distance to do. Here's a lovely uppercut into jabs, because if you throw the uppercut and you haven't hit them, it's because they've stood up. So you jab immediately after. That was a big Woody pet favourite. And that jumping back kick that smashed Gaethje's nose at the end of the first round. Probably couldn't have predicted it would work so well, but then he did go back to it a couple of times in the fight and look to get Gaethje while he was leaning. He also knocked down Dennis Bermudez with the same back kick to the head back in 2013, so he's got form. Another thing he did to exploit Gaethje's constant reaching with his lead hand is that Gaethje's lead elbow was often floating away from his body, which made him very susceptible to right hands to the body, and also the right body kick underneath the arm, which is pretty rare to land on a good opponent. But I think the most important thing to stopping him from doing this every time is that Max Holloway kept his distance perfectly and showed a ton of feints. It's very easy for Justin Gaethje to hit a big slip and come up on the collar tie if your jab goes straight through where he was and you end up on top of him. If you hang back and you show lots of feints and you just poke him on the end of the jab, a lot harder for him to do, and he sort of gave up on it. Though he did knock Max Holloway off his feet with the same grab and swing tactic, but I don't think it was counted as an official knockdown, if you care about that. And all this collar tie stuff links in quite well with jab and dip. I wish Gaethje would jab more. I think he's got a fantastic jab. And jabbing, dipping, and then coming up on the collar tie is a fantastic technique. I just wrote a huge article about Roberto Duran's jab and dip work, which I highly recommend you get on the Patreon and check out. Cheers!